One of Canada's iconic journalists, boy from nowhere, Allan Fotheringham, our guest. He's written his autobiography, and he wrote it, right?
Took me 79 years to write that.
79 years. Why now? Why particularly now? Aside from the fact you're 79.
Yeah. Well, I'd done 8 books, and I'd pretty well savaged every politician that walked, and so I'd run out of them. So I thought I might tell about myself. So I've had a very interesting life, as you know, and so it took me 79 years, as I say, to wrap it all up.
Of course, the highs and the lows, and I know a low for you was when you lost your son, Brady.
Yeah, it's a tragic thing this summer. And Brady, I can explain in the book, he set out after university to emulate his father and see the world, but not on an expense account like me. He did it on a bicycle. And he retraced the famous Silk Road of Marco Polo, and he wrote a good little book about it. And the reviewers said, well, this is okay, this book, but he doesn't have the wit of his father, and he doesn't have the political insights of his father. And we never talked about it, but I could sense that he could see if he was going to make his career as a journalist in Canada, he'd always be compared with his father. So he loved the Orient, and he went over there and got a job as a teacher in South Korea. And he was epileptic and had to take 20 pills a day from when he was a small boy, and it just wore his body down, and in August he just fell dead of a heart attack. And it wasn't a pleasant summer for me.
I understand, and I'm sorry. And the life he lived, short.
Yeah.
But he was good. I interviewed him
on
one of his articles or books, can't remember now. Your great-grandpa, Irish stowaway, so a little bit of that is in you.
Yes. He caught from Ireland. He was a stowaway on a ship going to Halifax, and I've inherited his Irish wit and I guess sort of stubbornness, and sticking it to, as the Irish like to do to the English, I like to stick it to those in power.
And you do that well.
Yes.
And a little love of the whiskey. Why not?
Why not?
So you went from the town that fun forgot, Ottawa, to Washington, D.C. on one of your political junkets. Who was there then? Alan Gottlieb?
Yes, Gottlieb was the ambassador, and I was there for 5 years for Southern News. And Gottlieb was a very smart guy, well respected, and he had this wife, Sandra, who was not well respected, and she made headlines around the world the night that she slugged her press secretary.
I recall.
Yes.
And I think she stubbed a cigarette out in the little salt plate or something.
Oh yeah, sure, that was one of her.
She was a bit of a pistol.
Yes.
Still is.
Yes, still is.
Yes.
She's
Well, it's tough when you're the ambassador's wife.
Yeah.
You know, the ambassador has to behave, but do you?
That's right.
Of all the people in the newspaper business who have hired you, who inspired you the most? A publisher, editor-in-chief?
Erwin Swangard was the managing editor of the paper. Squirming Ass Vanguard, I called him.
Of course you did.
And he said that the publisher asked him, what happened to that kid we hired from UBC? He asked him after about 6 months. And Swangard says, well, he's always late. He won't take orders. He gets in fights with everybody on the staff. And Cromie said, well, get rid of him. And Swangard says, no, he's brilliant. He has a tremendous future. in journalism.
So he had a good eye.
Smart guy.
What about Toronto Sun, Toronto Star, Toronto Sun, Doug Creighton?
Doug Creighton was a genius. He's the guy when the Toronto Telegram folded. He took the staff and overnight sitting on crates and typewriters, started a new paper, the Toronto Sun, and he hired me. And he had such assignments. He would say, Foth, why don't you go and find the 10 best resorts in the world? He says, you know, rich people go to those places, and the poor people would love to read it. And I thought he was kidding. And I walked down the hall and ran into her secretary, and she said, Allan, you got to give us your itinerary. And I said, well, where'd you get that from? From Doug. You know. So I went off, 10 resorts around the world, you know, Bermuda, the Riviera. And I came back, and well, I was the most hated reporter in Canada, because this was the type of assignment. And
probably now you'd be writing about wine or something.
Yes.
Go to the vineyards of the world and write about that. Great story in Boy From Nowhere about the late, great Jack Wasserman, friend of mine, friend of yours, wrote a very, can I say pithy again? Pithy column, gossipy column, with a little research from his friends.
Right.
When he died, were you there?
Yeah, sure. I got his column. And he did the, you know, the nightclubs and the bars and the three-dot journalism, you know, just little wee items. And I wasn't the type to, in those days, to hang around bars or nightclubs, so I wrote about politics. And it was in the best position in the paper on the second front at the bottom. So all you had to do is, when you buy your paper, they'd flip it up, the first thing they'd read, not the front page. So I inherited the finest space in the paper.
In the paper.
That's why I'm here today.
But when he did die, we thought he was joking. Remember?
That's right.
At the dinner, and he was giving the speech, and he just went, goodbye.
And we thought he was doing the old nightclub comic trip.
Yeah, fade to black.
Yeah.
And he was gone.
Yeah.
What's the Herb Capozzi story about the ashes? Herb took some of Jack's ashes and put them in his shoe or something.
Yes.
I don't know. They'll have to buy the book.
Yes.
Right? All of them.
All of them.
How nice to see you again.
Thank you again.
See you later. Boy From Nowhere, Life in 91 Countries, Allan Fotheringham.